Pete, thank you so much for joining us today. I really appreciate your time.
No worries, thanks for having me.
How are you? How's everything treating you in this crazy lockdown world?
Yeah, it's going really well. I think I'm definitely looking forward to the restrictions easing a bit more so I can actually go and see people, but I think all things considered, it's going pretty good.
Great. So you are a project manager, is that right? Is that what your title is?
Product manager.
Product manager, sorry. So for people like me who can't even pronounce it correctly, can you kind of just give us a brief synopsis of what it means to be a product manager in a games company?
Yeah, so as a product manager, I kind of oversee all aspects of the product. So that would be from originally creating an idea and then communicating that idea to a sales team to see if it's something you want to proceed with, and then again communicating that with the design team to try and come up with a look and a visual that works, and then at the same time communicating with factories all across the world to try and get the product made at a cost, and then again speaking to the sales team and communicating with customers and licensors to get the product out onto shelves. So it's kind of a unique position because rather than just having one specific involvement in the project, you have literally see it across his entire life, which is really cool.
So essentially what you're saying is you do everything.
Maybe not do everything, but I have a hand in everything, I like to say.
Get rid of the rest of the workforce and people do it all. But it's interesting that you get to touch all those different departments. So I guess it gives you a unique perspective of the business from that side, because you get to see a little bit of everything, which is one reason I'm really keen to talk to you today. And in part of that is involved in the development of a game from the idea concept, as you say. I believe one of the ones that you were involved in was Ultimate Arrogance. Can you talk to us a little bit about that, how that idea came about?
Yeah, so Ultimate Arrogance came about because we have a range of Matchbox games. Within those it's kind of like snippet games that you might play over like a dinner party or something. And we were kind of identifying games from that range that are popular, and then how can we try and bring this into a bigger, more involved game? And that's what happened with Ultimate Arrogance. So basically we looked at the original Matchbox game, which is the basic concept of the game, and then we thought, well, how could we expand this to be played with more people for a longer period of time and have a funner experience with it? So that's kind of how it comes about.
How has it worked for Ginger Fox? Because it doesn't, the boxes and the description of the games doesn't have published by designed by or artist by. It all seems to be just an in-house collaborative effort. Is that a conscious effort to not name designers?
Well, I think we have a really talented team of designers in-house that we use. So I think they all come under the same Ginger Fox family, as it were.
So when a game is made, it's a collaborative effort. So it's not one individual making it or a group of people. It's just the Ginger Fox family.
Yeah, 100%.
That's interesting because there's not many businesses, games publishers that work like that. But it seems to be more popular within publishers who are making party games. It seems to be more suited to that genre, and I can't really pinpoint why, but it does seem to be the case. Have you noticed that?
Yeah, I think you're right, but again, I'm not really sure why that is, but potentially, I suppose it comes down to I think party games especially is much more community based, and I think it's again probably much easier when you have a design team in house because you can really communicate the game to them, and they can see the game the entire way through the development.
So how many people from a design perspective were involved with Ultimate Arrogance? What are we talking here, numbers wise?
So from a design perspective, we've got probably got about 4 or 5 designers in-house that worked on the game, where probably one designer was leading the projects, and then everyone was collaboratively feeding into that experience as well.
Right, okay. That sounds like a fun process. I'd like to be part of that one time. I have to say, having played the game, it's a lot of fun. I've played it at home with my wife, online with my friends. I've done a few little games online with Instagram friends as well. It works really well for an online thing, which is obviously what our world is right now.
It's really good, and I think it's something that when we were developing the game, and like any game we develop up to now, you don't really think about it. But over the past 12 months, so many people have been doing all these games online. So I think for the development that we're doing this year, because we can't be in the office testing the games out together, we have to come up with solutions to play stuff online. So I think already going into the games we're releasing this season, we know that if like people want to play games online again, we're confident that these ones can be achieved in the same way.
Mm.
So I think it's kind of a happy accident to come out of this, really.
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, party games are great fun with a large group online anyway, but I think this is particularly good because it's just really simple to learn. The rules are really clear, and it's one of those games where not everybody has to have a copy. So you can open it up to friends who don't have a copy yet, give them a chance to experience it, and then if they enjoy it, they can go get their own copy to go host their own versions of it. I like it. I also like it because it reminds me of my university days of the drinking game version of Arrogance. Have you played that one?
I don't think I have, no.
It's very similar to this, but involves a lot more drinking. So I think this kind of links quite nicely to that if anybody wants to rekindle their younger days.
I think that's what's good about this game as well, because within a group of friends, there's always that one cheeky guy that's always like edging his bets a bit too much. So
exactly, they think they know more than they actually do, and it's fun. Like I said, when I played online, it works really well in a different way, and you can incorporate so many different people. But it's also just a fun game to watch, and that's the key point I want to make and ask you a question on, because I think a lot of the time people veer away from party games because they think I don't want to be that person stood up making a fool of myself, and I understand that. That's totally makes sense to me. But there are games like this where you can first of all just enjoy watching other people doing that. It's just a very fun experience to be a part of, even if you're not involved. Or perhaps you can be involved as the games master, as the host, as the quiz master, and not have to worry so much about making a fool of yourself in that way. You can kind of just control proceedings. And I think it's a shame that sometimes people turn away from these sorts of games because they're conscious of not wanting to be making an idiot of themselves. Is that something that comes into your mind when you're in the design process?
Oh, yeah, 100%. I think with everything, because of where our games are being sold and who are buying our games, you just want to make them as accessible as possible. And I think you're right. And we found ourselves, even people that within our company that we play games with, they don't really enjoy the kind of games that put them like front and center, like in front of everyone. It's like when you're watching a game show on TV, like for Arrogance, for example, and like the answer's like staring you in the face, but no one gets it. And I think it's just the added pressure. Like that's why we find like the timer in Arrogance and like the bell. This the added pressure of time just makes everyone stop thinking. So they always work so well in games.
Yeah, absolutely. When I've played this, like there's no questions in here that are difficult, but there's been many occasions when I've just froze and just cannot think of anything because that time pressure it makes fools of it. It's that thing where you're watching somebody on a TV game show and they're asked, what is 1 + 1, and they freeze. You're like, come on, what is wrong with you?
No.
This game kind of does that, and if you like that kind of feeling and watching your friends having that kind of feeling, then check this out because it's just so fun. But I do get that sometimes people don't want that, but there are many ways to enjoy this game and not have to have that. You can, like I say, be the games master or just watch others. Another game I want to ask about is Richard Osman's House of Games. I find it interesting, the world of IP in the games world right now. So how did this one come about? Was this an agreement with the BBC or with Richard Osman's team?
So I think IP is really interesting in games at the moment, and it's something that within Ginger Fox I work quite heavily in. So this came about with a licensing team. So it's the production team for the show, actually. Right. So we speak to them and we said that we really like your show. We think it'd be a great opportunity for it to be made into a board game. Mm-hmm. So then they said, yeah, we're interested. Let us know what you're thinking. So we'd go away and we'd create a series of design visuals for what the packaging could look like, as well as a brief concept for the game. And then we'd communicate that to them and get their feedback, make some tweaks and changes, and then hopefully get to a place where everyone's happy with, like we did on House of Games.
Interesting. And how long did that process take from the initial contact to everyone being happy with the end game?
So it takes around a year, I'd imagine, because I think board games are a bit more complicated because they're a bit more involved. They take a bit longer to develop, but generally the process is around a year.
Okay. And was Richard involved himself? Is there any sign off from him in the process?
So I think he got to see the original concept and then he signed off on whether he wanted to make a game of it. But it was mostly all dealt with the production team.
Okay, it's interesting because obviously you've got his image on the box, and his name is on the box. It's a big part of it. But I guess he's given that to the BBC for the show, so it's the production team that control that. But I find it interesting, these sorts of things, because sort of the background of how these things come about, I don't really know why, but they really do fascinate me from this perspective. And I think just because IP is such a big thing in games now, with things around Star Wars and Lord of the Rings all the time, and recently with Stonemaier for the Red Rising books that have been converted. But there's so much IP out there to go after. Is it something that is a element of competition for somebody like you, where you're sitting there thinking, this would make such a good game, I want to get in there before somebody else does? Is there an element of, is it a bit of a race?
Yeah, I suppose. I think it's kind of weird now. I think because I've been doing this for a bit of time. Like if I'm watching a game show on TV, like I can't help it. My brain just automatically kind of starts converting it into a game. It's just like, but you're right. It's interesting because it's kind of a fine balance. You have to have a show that's popular enough for people to enjoy, and at the same time a show that's been around long enough for people to have an interest in it and people to be familiar with it. And then you're right, at the same time you have to try and get in there and get the rights for this before another company thinks the same thing. So it's a tricky balance to get, but I think in a lot of things we've gotten quite lucky, and especially for House of Games, I think around the time we picked it up, it started growing, increasing in popularity. And I think especially over lockdown, I think watching quiz shows with the family has become like a new thing to do. So I think from the lockdown and obviously all those kind of things, it's just the popularity has just gone incredibly well.
Absolutely. And how have sales been throughout lockdown? Because it seems like more and more people are playing games, more people are discovering it because they're spending more time at home. Perhaps they've got more disposable income to spend on things like games because they're not going on holidays and things. Have you found it's been a good time for you guys?
Yeah, I think it's been a bit unique because traditionally we do much of our sales through like the high street and retailers like Next, M&S and John Lewis. But I think because no one can get to those places anymore, we've kind of seen the online side of it go like strike up massively. So like Amazon, we've seen great success on Amazon, especially for House of Games and things like Taskmaster. Like Taskmaster we released 18 months ago and we've sold over 100,000 units of that, which is insane, like for the amount of, considering it's quite a high price point board game as well. It's really good.
Yeah. Is that your current number 1 seller?
Yeah, definitely. We've been overwhelmed with the success of Taskmaster. We can't seem to keep it in stock long enough.
Right. I mean, the show's so big now, isn't it? Especially now it's moved to Channel 4 and it's getting a bigger audience. I've watched it since season 1 and absolutely have loved it. And when I saw that there was a board game, I got quite excited. And my brother-in-law bought that board game for me as a birthday present a year and a little bit ago, because he knows I love board games and he knows I love the show. And it's that kind of thing, I guess, when you're sitting there thinking, what kind of game show, what IP is going to work great for a board game? And something like Taskmaster is perfect because I just think there's a real synergy between the fun of board games, the fun of Taskmaster, and putting it together. And it works so perfectly, I think. So yeah, kudos to you for getting that one because it's a big one. I'd love to see the team behind it from the TV show get more involved. I know there's a lot of talk on Twitter from Alex Thorne where he kind of talks about it a little bit, but I'd love them to like just do a playthrough. I'd love to see those guys play.
Yeah,
game. That would be a lot of fun.
That'd be wicked. But I think again, Taskmaster was kind of, we got in there like at the perfect time again because we got on just as it was on Dave, but as we launched it, it started transitioning over to Channel 4, so obviously gaining a much bigger audience. But again, the development of Taskmaster was a bit more unique as well, whereas before we tend to deal with the production teams whereas now for this Taskmaster game, Alex was very much getting involved in everything and he wanted to be involved in the challenges and involved in the videos, which I mean is pretty unique for us to get the actual talent of the show like so involved. But I mean it's great, and I think because of it we've been able to make such a great product out of it.
Yeah, definitely. The videos where he's in them, it's such a nice touch. It really feels like it sounds cheesy to say it, but it feels like you're part of the show. You know, when you're playing some board games that have taken something like that, you feel like, okay, I've had a cool experience, but you know, it's definitely like I've been on the show. You're not stupid. You're in your front room. But with because his face is there, I don't know, it kind of transports you there in quite a.
I know, and I think the intros he does to come into videos are so funny. But I think that's something we're trying to incorporate a bit more as well as into other future games, because it's worked so well for Taskmaster. It's kind of staying true to the traditional format of a game, but then incorporating digital elements that give people increased areas to play that weren't accessible before. And again, especially in Taskmaster, it's whereas traditionally you'd buy a game and that's your game for the rest of its life. with this digital element, it allows you to update the game as you progress. So for Taskmaster, we've got seasonal challenges. So you get, like, for Christmas, you'll get a set of challenges. For Valentine's Day, you'll get a new set of challenges. So it's a way to constantly update it and give people different play experiences without having to have them actually buy anything new, which is really good.
Yeah, that's really cool. And it's nice there, the point you made at the end there, that it's not necessarily at an extra cost to the customer. It's just a chance for them to keep enjoying that game over and over and over and over. That's nice. So moving away from Ginger Fox and more to you, what's your background in gaming? How did you get involved in it in the first place?
So I kind of fell into it, to be honest. So I think, like most people, I tend to just play board games, but traditionally it'd only really be around Christmas, and it'd be like Monopoly, Cluedo, the traditional kind of ones. But then, yeah, it just kind of, so I went to university and I studied product development. And then from that, I was just looking for a job. I saw this came up and I was like, well, that sounds pretty unique and pretty fun. Because I think I've always tried to find a job that I'd find enjoyable, because obviously you spend so much time there. I'd rather do something that I'd want to do. So yeah, I think I've been really lucky, and I think it's such a unique role that I don't think I'd find anywhere else. It's really good.
And how long ago was that? When did you join the business?
So about 3.5 years ago, coming up to 4 years probably.
Exciting. So obviously you've enjoyed it to stick around for that long. What's it like communicating with the team now in lockdown? Is it just lots of video calls? And
I think it's definitely made it a bit more challenging, but it's kind of strange when you first start doing it. You're like, oh, this is like really inconvenient, it's taking ages. But now it's just become so normal, I think. And I think communicating through, like, we probably communicate more now with all areas of the business because it's so much easier. So whereas before it's just like, you might be like, oh, this person's busy, I'll talk to him later. You can just drop them a note whenever. So I think it's made it actually a bit easier. And especially for game testing, that's probably been the biggest challenge, because we're not able to get all around a table and play the games together. We've had to find solutions of doing it online. But that's also meant that we can open up to more people outside of the business. So it kind of has pros and cons both sides of it.
Yeah. Do you think, I've heard that before from a few other people about playtesting, do you think online playtesting will continue beyond the end of lockdown? Do you think the benefits of reaching more people globally will mean that there'll be online playtesting forever?
I think definitely. I think it's a huge advantage. Like, we've been doing quite a lot of work with game inventors, and because of these online game sessions, we've been able to take concepts from people all around the world. So like this season we've got games coming out from America. We've had people pitching to us from Israel, just like things that otherwise you just never get to meet these people or see any of the ideas they have.
That's awesome. Can you talk about any of the upcoming stuff, or is it all secret under wraps?
No, I can talk about some of the stuff we've got coming up. So we've got, in terms of licenses, so we're really excited to be launching the Who Wants to Be a Millionaire board game this year.
Cool.
So that's it alongside our card game, which we're really looking forward to. And then, are you familiar with the Beat the Chasers on ITV?
Yeah.
So we've got that coming out as a card game, which will be really good. Then, from, like I was saying, we've been doing some work with inventors. So we've got a really exciting game called Bajillions coming out, which is all about crazy numbers, like how many stones were used in the pyramids of Egypt, and then how many words are there in the Bible, and then you've got to say which one is bigger and by how much it is. And it's kind of got the arrogance feel to it, because it's kind of edging your bets on like how confident you feel is this answer, or like how confident you think is that answer. So that one's going to be really exciting.
Who did all the fact checking for that one?
So that was the inventor.
Right.
But I think he definitely had his work out for him, I think.
Yeah, for sure. That sounds fun. And when can we expect these things? Is that later this summer?
Yeah, so they'll be out for September. They should be available.
Okay. Have you changed also in lockdown your release schedules? A lot of the time it seems to come around big expos or chances when people like you get to demo the games in front of a large group of people. Has the cancellation of those changed when you release games?
I think we're releasing them at the same time, but it's different, I suppose, because we tend to go to Spring Fair and Toy Fair, those kind of industry events that are also open to the public. So that's when you kind of get the opportunity to reveal to everyone, like, oh, this is what we're presenting this year, like, and get people excited about it. So I think that's been much more challenging, because you're just relying on people a bit more to find you.
It's a shame those opportunities are gone, but obviously it's been done for the right reasons. But it's such a big it's such a big part of the community that's been wiped out. And I just think as soon as they're back, people are going to go absolutely bonkers.
Yeah. And I think that's the thing as well, especially in this industry. I think because everyone is so close knit, and especially like community of gamers as well, like going to those kind of expos and those shows is just a great opportunity to meet other people and see what everyone else is coming out with.
Mm-hmm.
So,
do you guys
I think it's
relationships with the other publishers? Are there other developers and publishers that you kind of you hang out with, or is there too much of a rivalry there?
I don't know. I think we tend to see people at the shows, but I don't think we really have a direct relationship anymore. It's mostly trying to maintain relationships and meet new inventors for games. I think that's where we're trying to focus a bit more.
Is there rivalry there then? Like, let's say there's a new game. Oh, I just lent on House of Games. Is there a rivalry there when there's an inventor going around and there's like word going, there's a new cool game and it's perfect for us, and there might be another publisher that you think it's perfect for them? Does that get a bit of rivalry, or are you kind of just more chilled out and go, well, if they come with us, they come with us?
Yeah, I don't know. I think it depends who you deal with. I think we're relatively chilled out, but for example, I've walked on a few stands on trade shows and they've asked me a few questions and they've not been very happy when I told them where I was from. But yeah, I think it's alright, isn't it? I think that's the thing with those game experiences, because you're at the show presenting what you have anyway, so I think it's okay.
Why would they not be happy? What was the conflict there?
I don't know. I think they just worry about you snooping about and spying on what they're coming out with.
Oh, right. So you mean if it's the stand from another publisher, you mean?
Yeah.
Right. Yeah. No, I understand. It makes sense because, like, everyone's, board games are about having fun and a great community feel. But at the end of the day, you guys are a business and you want to sell some games. And if you don't sell the games, you can't keep the lights on and you can't make any more games. I think people understand that. But
yeah,
it's sometimes forgotten in the world of Kickstarter that there are businesses behind all these things. People think it's just like one person in their front room doing some kind of charity work or something. It's funny.
And some of the stuff you see on Kickstarter now is absolutely amazing as well. I've seen so many games you see on Kickstarter. Oh, that'd be good. And then like a year later, you see it in Waterstones and John Lewis, and you're like, wow.
Yeah, it's impressive how quick it goes now. It seems if you get a lot of hype on Kickstarter, you'll get a publisher deal at the end of it. So it's not just now become a conduit to make a game. It's a pitch to the market for pick me up for a deal. It's interesting. There's a few other games I want to talk about. Corks is one of the favorites in our household because it's just so fast, quick, and fun, and it seems to be such a clever and simple concept. What's the feeling within the business about this game? Because I just think it's so good. It deserves more hype, I think.
Yeah, we really like Corks in the company. We actually had a Corks tournament like a year or so ago to see who was the best person at playing Corks in the company. But again, I think this is something that's really unique about Corks as well, is that you can play with so many people. And I think that's where we've kind of found success with it, because there aren't that many games that you can take to a party. Everyone in a party can learn it within about 5 minutes, and then you can play the whole game in 10 minutes.
Yeah, absolutely. I completely agree. And like you say, fit for such a large group. And, it's got an element of, oh, I'm out of the game now, but it's so fast, you'll be back in it again no time. It's perfect for that environment.
And it's one of the games as well that even if you're not playing, it's really fun to watch, because the amount of people that just scramble all over the table to grab that last cork, and the amount of like infighting there is in rivalries, it's just really fun.
Yeah, exactly. Emoji action I'm interested in. The tins of this size and shape seem to cause unnecessary amounts of controversy on social channels because of people's desire for uniform stacking and things. But for a father of 2 young children like myself, I love it because it's a perfect little small tin that I can take with me and play this game before a meal in a pub or whatever it may be. So it suits that kind of purpose. My question here is around the packaging. What is the thought process when you put something in something like this rather than something like this? Because this could be square cards. It doesn't have to be yellow circular cards, right?
Yeah, I think it kind of leans back into what you're saying, and it's thinking about how people are going to be using that game. Like, are they going to be traveling with it? Is it something that they're going to want to keep at home? And I think increasingly now, like when people go on holidays, a lot of people take games. So it's trying to make a game that appeals to those people.
Yeah, makes sense. And I completely agree. Because if I want a game like this for the purpose I explained, I want it to be in a tin of this ilk. it's perfect for it. But yeah, I don't know. I guess the people that complain are the ones who don't have kids yet, and then a few years time, maybe they'll start buying a whole bunch of games in this sort of tin. And the last one I want to talk about today is 9-9, just because I find this game really fun, but it's one of the few party games that I enjoy playing in a 2. There's not many party games I like playing. I like it in a larger player count as well, but there's very few that I enjoy in the 2 because they just feel a bit flat and almost redundant. It seems weird to play a party game in a 2, whereas this just suits really well. My wife and I will often sort of end a big heavy Euro with a couple of games of that, and it's funny. We get more competitive with each other than we would with like a big battle of side, for example. And I just think it's such a really clever concept. Do you know the history behind this one? Because this isn't an IP, right? This is just a concept for a game.
Yeah, so this is the Ginger Fox game that we came up with ourselves. And again, I think the power with games is that they're as fun as with the people you're playing them with. So there's something like 9, because it's all down to your imagination. It can be like as rude, as funny, or as weird as you'd like it to be.
Yeah, absolutely. I think that's why my wife and I enjoy playing it together, because we've got the same ridiculous sense of humor, and there's like an element of safety there. We know whatever we say, the other person won't be offended. We've known each other for 20 years. It's like there's nothing hidden now. But yeah, I just think it's clever. Like I say, there aren't many party games that just scale down to that level, as well as that, in my opinion. So it's a nice one to have in our collection because it's quite unique in that perspective.
Yeah, and I think that's what we try and consider, because I think you're right. I think some of the other party games out there, they might say 2+, but really they're not really considered for 2+. It's more like 3+ or more. So I think if we do put 2+ on the board, we tend to test it extensively with all level of players just to make sure that it works and that you get the greatest experience out of the game. Yeah,
absolutely. That's such an important thing, because games sometimes can work in a 2 or solo or in a 6, but really they're not suited for that. And I like how on BGG you get what the publisher says, but then what the general actual opinion is, and that's normally what I take more note of. But I find with the games that you do that there isn't as big a gap between what you're saying and what the rest of the world is saying. So I guess that comes down from good, accurate, and honest play testing, and you guys being honest with the market. So on behalf of BGG, thank you for that.
I was glad to hear.
Pete, thank you so much for your time. Before I let you go, I have to give you a massive compliment. I'm very envious of your beard. It's made me. I cut mine off last year on the request of my entire family and boss and friends.
Oh, no.
I'm very jealous of yours. I've been squirming in envy every time I've been sitting with you. But I appreciate your time, Pete. Thanks so much for it.
No worries. Thanks very much.